Hey folks, grace and peace. This is Brian Musser. I am the Baptist Campus Minister at Drexel University, and this is Peace and Power Bible Study, the peace of Jesus Christ to change your life, the power of the Holy Spirit to change the world. And we are looking at the good news. The gospel is good news for every person and every part of life. As we're looking at the gospel, we've been looking at it, we've been examining it through these 5 question areas: relationships, lifestyle, purpose, belonging, and beliefs. This week we're going to be talking about purpose. How does the gospel relate to the purpose of our lives? And to start off with an easy question, what is the meaning of life? What do you think life is all about? What is the purpose of life? Why are you here? Now, this has many different answers. Some people's purpose of their life has something to do with work or leaving a legacy. Oftentimes, someone's purpose of their life revolves around their family. Sometimes it's pleasure, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's fame. What is the meaning of life? And this is an important question because this purpose question determines how we are going to do certain things on this life. Why are we here and what are we here for? Really impacts how we live our life, which would be a lifestyle, which we saw last week. But this week, we're going to look at it a little bit different. We're going to talk about, as human beings, we have a limited amount of resources to spend for worthwhile endeavors. What resources do we have? We can ask this question a lot, and we think about time, energy, money, but we have other ones that are maybe less obvious, like networking. I am a campus minister. I get to invite students to events all the time, but there's a limited amount of influence I have over students. So, what types of things am I willing to use my influence to drive students to get students to? Another whole area, as working with college students, we're talking about our knowledge, our intelligence, our experience, our know-how, what we are able to do. Those are resources that we have. Wisdom, our story, how we tell other people about our lives. From a spiritual aspect, we think about our spiritual gifts. If your spiritual gift is hospitality, how do you leverage that gift for worthwhile endeavors? Then also, we talk about our grace and our faith. How do we spend those things for what is good? There are tons of resources that come with being a human being. Some of these are limited and some are not. Like, we have a specific amount of time, but we can be almost unlimitedly gracious and loving. Okay. How do you decide where and when to spend your resources? How do you figure out what your purpose is? And interestingly enough, the question is that I want you to think about as well is this idea of what's your greatest resource at the moment? Some of us, our lives are drastically changed by this COVID-19 experience. We have more time than anything else. Others of us might have much more limited financial resources than usual, but we might have a sense of wisdom coming out of this that we never had before. How do we leverage these resources for what is ultimately our purpose in life? There's a movie made in the 80s. It won the Best Picture at one time. It's called Chariots of Fire. Probably hasn't aged as well as other movies we could think of, but there's this character, Eric Little, and it's based on a true story, except for the parts they kind of made it more interesting. But most of the general narrative is true to the story. He's an Olympic athlete who had to figure out whether or not to run on a Sunday, because that was against his beliefs. But he was also a devout Christian minister who ended up as a missionary to China. And his sister actually questioned whether or not he should waste his time, his limited time, doing sporting events like running instead of being on mission for God in China? This was his answer, and this is in the movie. I'm not so sure this is actually what he answered in real life, but this issue did come up in his real life. I believe that God made me for a purpose for China, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. To give it up would be to hold him in contempt. You're right, it's not just fun. To win is to honor him. Eric Liddell. Look up the movie, look up the book of his life, look up some important facts. And it's interesting to know that he did make it to China, and he was actually well renowned within China as someone who cared for the Chinese people. So this quote unpacks this idea that his main purpose in life was to glorify God. And he saw very little difference between glorifying God through running and glorifying God through being a missionary in China. Both were fulfilling his main purpose of glorifying God, which would fit right into the Westminster Shorter Catechism, which their very first sentence question asks, "What is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever." And you can see some of the verses there that kind of reference this text. I'm just going to read Psalm 86:9 for the first part. All the nations you have made will come and bow down before you, Lord, and will honor your name. We were created to glorify God, and we were created to enjoy him. Again, looking at the Psalm 144:15, happy are the people with such blessings. Happy are the people whose God is Yahweh. So ultimately, if you want a purpose in life as a Christian, that purpose should be glorifying God. Now, that is broad, and we can do that in many different ways. But as we're looking at how to spend our limited resources, we should greatly consider what kind of glory they bring to God and how we can enjoy God while doing that. As always, there are two ways to join this conversation. I have something similar to this live Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Zoom, and it's much more of a discussion than these YouTube videos. But if you can't make that, I do post these weekly wrap-ups on YouTube and on my WordPress blog. I am trying to be all over the place on social media: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, WordPress, and YouTube. The links will be in the description. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to talk to you again real soon.